Okay, so this conversation is inspired by a client asking me questions about this, and also someone from the community messaging me about this. You listen to this podcast, so if you are listening to this, hi, I'm so happy you asked this because it gave me a good idea for a topic for the podcast. So I've talked about this before. A lot of the pregnancy stuff, like when I've talked on the podcast, was when I was pregnant. It's easy for me to create content based off of what I'm like navigating in real life. But I know so many of you are pregnant because so many of you are listening to this and I'm helping you get there, which is so freaking cool. Whether you're a client or whether you're a podcast listener, like I love it so much. So I want to dive into this topic. We're going to go like a couple different directions with this, but the first is someone was reaching out to me and saying that, she wants to not have to take the regular like glucose test, right? She's like, I really don't want to do the regular glucose test. What should I do? What should I say to my doctor? How do I, make sure that I'm able to do that? Like she was like nervous about it, right? Because she's like, I've asked something else in the past and they like gave me resistance to it. And she just was feeling a little stressed out about having to talk to her doctor about not wanting to do the regular glucose test. Now, I've done a podcast episode on this before with like details of exactly why I don't recommend it. We could link that below. But if you didn't know, the glucose drink that, they're given most people to do it is loaded with obviously so much sugar, but it's loaded with dyes, it's loaded with chemicals. Like when you read the label, you would never ever eat a food or drink a drink that had any of these things in it, nor would you give it to your baby. And it is mind blowing that our doctors are giving this to every single pregnant woman in their pregnancy because, to just make sure they don't have gestational diabetes. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't get your glucose test done. And I'm not saying that if you already did do it, you're doomed and your baby's going to have harm. Like, no, that's not the point. But the point is that there are better options available. And when we know better, we could do better, right? And if there are better options available, you might as well utilize your right as the parent, right? Because you are the one that's in charge of you and you are the one that's in charge of your baby. I know it can seem like your doctor has like the last say, but they don't. Nobody has the last say about your health and your baby's health except you, okay? So that's first and foremost. Like you have to step into pregnancy and motherhood knowing that you have the final say, and to not let anybody intimidate you to feel differently. Because especially if you're listening to this podcast and you likely are going to want to do things differently, whether it is maybe not having the specific glucose test or wanting to not be hooked up to IVs during birth, possibly wanting to do like an unmedicated birth, or not vaccinating right away, or not doing the exact schedule, whatever it is, you're going to want to be, you're likely going to be doing things differently than the quote unquote norm. So you have to get really comfortable with people trying to intimidate you out of it, or making you feel, or giving the opportunity for you to feel like you're doing something wrong, and getting really fucking clear on your why and why you're solid in it and what you actually believe in, because it's going to be really easy to knock you off. And we don't want that, right? So that's first and foremost. So if you are someone, you're like, okay, I'm heading into my glucose test. I don't want to do it differently, whatever, blah, blah, blah. When you go in to talk to your doctor, you're not asking them if this is okay, right? So there's two different things to this. For alternatives for glucose tests. For me personally, I did not take one. I asked him, I said, I don't want to take the glucose test. What can I do instead? And he was aware, like he knows me. I've been going for years. He knows like I'm not doing all the things. I'm not doing the vaccinations. I'm not anything, right? Like he knows the deal. So he was obviously not surprised when I asked him this. And he was like, you could do a continued glucose monitor, or we could just do 3 different blood tests, fasting blood tests, and like see how things are. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's do that. So I just did the blood test option, and that worked for me. He obviously knew my health history. He wasn't concerned about it, and he knows me, whatever. So that's what we did. So you can ask them, hey, what are the other options? And if you feel like they're going to say no, then you present the options to them, right? So that's personally what I did. So the options for you could be doing the fresh test. Fresh test, I have no affiliation with them. I didn't personally use them, but if you are going to do a glucose test, highly recommend using fresh test, because it is still loaded with sugar. So it's going to dysregulate your blood sugar. You're going to probably feel like shit afterwards, but it doesn't have all the horrible ingredients in there that the regular glucose test does, the glucose drink does. Okay. So highly recommend, if you are going to do it, getting the fresh test. And this is what this woman was saying. Like, okay, what do I do? Just bring it in, da-da. Literally, you just go into your office. It could be the appointment before you go in for a glucose test. And you should be like, hi, I'm really not comfortable taking drinking the traditional glucose drink. There's a lot of chemicals and stuff in there that I'm just not comfortable putting in my body. I actually found an alternative. It's called Fresh Test. I'm going to bring that in and use that for my glucose test, period. And you can say, like, here's what it is. If you're unfamiliar with it, here's the information for it, and show them what the information is. You are not asking, hi, I'm not sure. I don't really think I want to do the regular glucose test, but I heard that there's something called Fresh Test. Like, is that okay? Can I do that instead? Da-da-da. If you go in there like that, and they're going to be like, no, you have to do the regular one. And they're going to bully you into it because you are looking low confidence. You're looking like you don't know what you're talking about. And you're also looking like you're asking for permission. You are not asking for permission. You are telling them that this is what you're doing. And if they're going to not be cool with it, then you're going to go to a different provider. Like, straight up, period. End of sentence. So that's how I would approach that. Bring them the information, whether you have the actual fresh test with you, or you have a picture of the ingredients, whatever, what it is, so they know, because likely they might not even know what it is. And of course, maybe they want to know, which is totally understandable. And you can just say, hey, like, I'm actually going to do this instead. I took it, like, here's the ingredients so I could show you what it looks like in case you haven't heard of it. But this is what I'm going to do next week when I come in for my glucose test. They're likely just going to say, okay, and move on. Right? Like, it really is all about how you present the information and the confidence you have going into it. So that's one option if you want to do the fresh test. I didn't even want to do that because it's still going to mess with your blood sugar. And we could talk about how to support yourself through it if you are going to do that. So if you don't want to do that, then you could present them with two other options. You could say, like, hey, I really don't want to do the traditional glucose test because, I really don't want to just regulate my blood sugar like that. How about, would you be open to doing a continued glucose monitor, or, various blood tests, fasting blood tests in the morning to check, my glucose levels and all that stuff, and present them with that? Because that you kind of have to, it's not like just a very quick replacement like the fresh test. Like, the fresh test is the same exact thing. You're getting the same exact results. You're just drinking a different drink. So that's just like hard and fast. Like, this is what I'm doing instead. If you're going to be presented with other options, they have to kind of like sign off on that, of just like, okay, yeah, we could do an alternative, like a continued glucose monitor. Excuse me. You could still bring them those options and be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and here are the reasons why. This is the monitor I'm going to do. This is how I'll do it, da-da-da, and see what they say, okay? Now, this goes way back to the beginning, though. You should already be, by this point in your pregnancy, you should already know that whatever option you bring to your doctor, they're going to be supportive, they're going to listen to what you're saying, and they're going to be open to having a conversation about it. If your doctor is not, I know you might not want to switch doctors midway into your pregnancy, but there's just a reminder for people, maybe if you're listening to this earlier on, these are questions you should be asking your doctor way before you even get to this point, right? When you just are going to your gyno, maybe you're not even trying to conceive yet, or, you are actually trying, or you're very early in your pregnancy. These are things to talk to your doctor about at the very beginning, because you want to make sure that you are with a provider who is going to support your alternative needs during pregnancy. Like, hey, I just want to make sure, like, when I am pregnant or when we get further in this pregnancy, that I'm not going to be pressured into taking a vaccine that I don't want to take, that I am planning on doing a natural, unmedicated birth, that I don't want to be hooked up to things, I don't want to birth on my back, that I'm going to do an alternative for the glucose test. Like, have these conversations in the beginning. And I know it can be uncomfortable, especially if you have like a white fucking man with the, like, let's just call it what it is, with the jacket on, and they're intimidating, whatever. But this is an opportunity for you to feel really empowered and to step into the energy that you're going to need once you do have this baby, right? Because this isn't just about you anymore. It's about you and baby. So let that like mama bear energy come on up. And that is going to be really extremely supportive for you. So I'd highly recommend having these conversations before you even get to these points throughout your pregnancy. So it's not something that you have to battle when you're already with this provider for like, 5 months, 6 months, and now you're like, fuck, I don't want to get a different one now. It's like, let's start from the beginning. If you can, if you're in that early stage of pregnancy when you're listening when you're listening to this. And like, to make it easier on yourself, write it down. I always had a notes app and wrote stuff down to talk about. And even if you are, there's a saying from the Little Milk Bar. I actually had the CEO on the podcast a while back when I was pregnant, but it's like, use your voice even when it shakes. Even if you're not that confident yet and you're feeling nerves and you're shaky, use your voice anyway. Use your voice anyway, and start the conversation and get the support that you want and you deserve during pregnancy. Pregnancy could be stressful in and of itself. You do not need to add the stress of if your doctor is going to support you or not, if you're going to be able to get the care that you want to get, if you're going to feel pressure to doing something that you don't want to do. Like, that should be completely taken off the table. Okay, so ideally you're having these conversations ahead of time. But if you're already like midway in, that's how I would approach it. Just say, hey, this is a fresh test, this is what I'm doing. Like, enough that, like, that's literally just fucking it. Okay. Also a good time to talk about like your birth plan, like all of that stuff, to make sure they're cool with it. And just let them know, like, this is what's actually happening. Like, I'm going to have a doula come in, like the whole thing. Okay. So that's that. Or again, if you're going to do something different, like a continued glucose monitor, like talk to them about that. But you don't need to be scared. They're working for you. Okay. You could fire them at literally any point. Oh, hey, I'm actually not going to go to you anymore. Please send all my paperwork to this office. So just remember that. Okay. And then the second part of this, my current client who's pregnant, she's doing the fresh test, and she was like, how can I best support myself before and after? When you do the 1 hour glucose test, that is not fasting. You could eat prior. If you're doing the 3 hour one, it is fasting. So then this part of the advice won't be applicable to you. But if you're doing the 1 hour glucose test that you can eat prior, highly recommend doing your regular mind your hormones morning routine. Okay, you have your electrolytes in the morning. I love the minerals and chill or the instant hydration. You do your lemon water, and you have your high protein, fiber, and healthy fat rich breakfast, your PFF breakfast, like the normal thing, right? Making sure you are stabilizing your blood sugar before you even go into taking the fresh test. Okay, you're still obviously going to be taking a ton of sugar, but at least you are starting at a good baseline. And that's going to support you a ton. Okay. So that's the first thing I would do if you're going into your glucose test. And then after you're done taking your glucose test, have another ready to go protein, fiber, and healthy fat rich meal. Make sure you have the healthy fats in there. That is what's going to really help uptake that sugar that's floating around and making you feel probably all crazy and lightheaded. You might feel like shit. Like, you might not even feel like eating. But whenever you can, because you might be super nauseous, when you can stomach something, it can even be small, but make sure there's healthy fats in there and some protein. Okay. Ideally the whole PFF. And on top of that, I want you to use your muscles. Go for a walk, do some light strength training. First of all, walking helps stabilize your blood sugar and bring down your glucose levels. I forget the percentage, but literally just like a 10-minute walk brings it down a ton. So go for a walk immediately after if you can, or do like a full, strength train, whatever. And ideally, if you could do longer than a 10-minute walk, do a longer than 10-minute walk. But using your legs and like your quads are the biggest muscles in your body, and the muscles are going to help uptick that sugar. So walking and or doing like lower body strength training is going to be really helpful for you, helping to stabilize your blood sugar after it was just fucking spiked out of the world from the high amount of sugar in the glucose drink. Okay, whether you do the regular one or the fresh test. Because, and this is what I teach in Restore PCOS Fertility, which was formerly called Balance Your Blood Sugar, is it's not always about continuously being blood sugar regulated, because there are going to be times when your blood sugar is dysregulated. For example, taking the fresh test, for example, not eating quote unquote perfectly, your blood sugar can get dysregulated just from having a heated conversation or having an argument with somebody. So you need to also know how to stabilize yourself after, when you realize that you are dysregulated, right? That's the power of actually understanding and knowing exactly how to balance your blood sugar and regulate it out, which is all in Restore PCOS Fertility. I'll put the link for that in the show notes if you're someone who is wanting that. If you're listening to this, you're likely pregnant, but that is going to help you in postpartum as well. Or if you're trying to conceive, you're just getting ahead of listening to stuff like this because you're like manifesting it. I love that for you. Anyway, I'll put that in the show notes for you. But besides the point, that is what I'd recommend. Okay. So before your glucose test, have your PFF breakfast, your full mind your hormones morning. And then after, when you can stomach it, because if you're not like nauseous, having a PFF either snack or meal after, definitely have healthy fats in there and some protein for sure, even if it's something small. and do some type of movement, walking, lower body strength training, something to really help uptick that energy. It's going to help you not feel as shitty. And if you are feeling nauseous and stuff, I would just really advise against just laying down. At least go for a walk. It's going to help you feel better. It is going to help you feel better because you're going to really help stabilize everything. Okay. So have that plan. Like whatever your appointment is, if you're going with your partner or something, like, hey, this is what we're doing after. Like, we're going to go for a walk. Even if I feel like shit, like just help me at least go for a 10-minute walk, and then you're going to feel better and it's going to be so much better. So that's how I'd recommend navigating all of that. And overall too, really being confident and empowered when you're talking to your doctors and having a provider that's going to support you. You could change them at any time. This client that I'm actually talking about just changed providers because she moved from Florida to San Diego, and she's far along. She's 20-something weeks because she's doing the glucose test. So she's pretty far along, and she switched because she was moving. So it's possible to switch, and it's going to be so much more worth it for you if you know you're with a doctor that's been giving you shit this whole time and they're not going to support your birth plan or whatever. Switch. Go interview somebody. Go to another office and go on like a Facebook group. Be like, hey, I live in X town. Do you know of a good provider that is open to, X, Y, and Z type of birthing and whatever? And go interview other people and like ask them, and then just get switched. Especially if like you're not a high risk pregnancy, it's going to be no problem. And it's going to be so worth it for you so that you feel supported in a time where you should feel so supported, and it shouldn't be a stress for you. So that is my reminder for you. If you are pregnant, I hope you're feeling well. Congratulations. If you're not, you'll listen to this anyway. I've got you. I got all the resources to help you get there. We'll link everything in the show notes that I was talking about. We'll put the fresh test in the show notes. Again, I don't have a code or anything for you, but that is just the one that I would highly recommend if you are going to do the glucose drink instead of doing the traditional one. And then we'll put Restore PCOS Fertility in the show notes, which was formerly called Balance Your Blood Sugar. And whatever else I talked about, because I don't remember. But I love you so much, and I will talk to you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for being here. If you loved this episode and learned something valuable, please share it with a friend who you think would also love it, or post it on social media and tag me so I could personally say thank you for helping me spread this important message. I am beyond grateful to be here with you. So until next time, stay intentional, stay consistent, and always mind your hormones.